Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam.
As far as we know, we live on the only planet that contains such complex forms of organic matter. Life. People in the entire history of mankind have tried to understand the origin of life, and often settled on the idea of a divine creator. But the real answer is far more interesting. All complex forms have their origin in simple and understandable interactions. Together they form something which is more than the sum of their parts. This is what we call emergence. To understand this process a little better, we have to look at the tiny building blocks everything around us is made of. Atoms. Every atom in the universe was once formed in a process called nucleosynthesis. Nucleosynthesis happens in the cores of stars. After the Big Bang, our universe was filled with helium and hydrogen atoms. In the extreme hot and dense center of stars, electrons are pulled away from the atoms and only the nuclei remain. If the temperature is sufficiently hot, the different nuclei are forced to merge together to form new atoms in nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion generates energy to fuel the star's radiation. Over time, the star will run out of fuel. All the helium and hydrogen will have fused into heavier elements. When a star no longer produces energy from the inside out, the equilibrium between radiation pressure and the force of gravity will be eliminated. When this happens in a big star, a star that has 10 solar masses or more, the core of the star will collapse and the star will explode. This is called a supernova. In a supernova, nuclear fusion can continue to form elements heavier than iron. In the explosion, the newly formed elements will radiate out into space. Over time, these elements will form into new solar systems like ours. Everything we are and everything around us was once made in the center or the explosion of a star. On our planet, the first form of life came to existence not long after our Sun and its planets were born. There are a few theories of how life came to existence. One of them is that the first organic molecules emerged in a primordial soup. In the early reducing atmosphere, CH4, NH3, NH2, CO2 and H2O might have fused into monomers, simple organic compounds. These monomers, like sugars, purines, pyrimidines and amino acids, were the building blocks of the RNA that subsequently evolved into DNA. The black smoke theory describes where this revolution could have taken place. On the bottom of the ocean, there are formations we call black smokers. These pillars of basalts were made of lava that erupts from the middle of the earth into the oceans and cools down quickly. Gases containing phosphor and other materials from the middle of the earth come into contact with the salty seawater. Small organisms might have emerged here, feeding off the phosphor. These first organisms most likely carried RNA in their cells, which evolved to the DNA that holds our genetic code today. DNA is a molecule that is composed out of a polymer of deoxyribose nucleic acids. One single unit exists out of a sugar, a phosphate group and a nucleotide base. There are 4 different nucleotide bases: adenine and guanine, both purines, and thymine and cytosine, both pyrimidines. The sequence of nucleotides in DNA is unique for every individual and determines our unique hereditary traits. We have only a rough idea how the RNA in the first small organisms evolved into DNA. The most likely way is that all genetic information, maybe RNA, maybe DNA, originated from one last universal common ancestor, LUCA. It then follows the various routes to all organisms that ever existed on Earth. Bacteria, plants, animals, humans, and so on. In a rapid journey through time, we have seen that small entities, atoms, molecules, cells, can accumulate and form larger matters. From the tiniest building blocks in the universe, complex systems can arise. Individually, these building blocks don't appear to be ingredients for higher systems, but together they unify into life. The fact that it took billions of years of selection and evolution for our species to develop toward the human beings we are today shows how complex and beautiful this life is. Built from relatively simple units, but interacting in such complex forms that they manifestate in the world around us. That is what we call emergence.